awesome time of the year when we are celebrating the great Advent season. It's a time when we are celebrating what God is doing in our lives, has done in the past, what he's doing now, and what he will do in the future. And we are eternally grateful. When we look at the Gospels, those writers who are writing good news to us about Christ Jesus, Luke stands out for most of us. And there's a reason for it. Luke stands out for most of us because Luke is writing primarily to us. Yeah. He may have copied a great deal of his literature in his narrative from the Gospel according to Mark, who's believed to be the oldest writer in the New Testament Gospels. But Luke is writing from a different slant. There is a message that he wants to convey to a people who are oppressed. And so he becomes the only New Testament writer who is a Gentile. He's a non-Jew. He is someone who is attempting to convey good news to a people who appear to be left out. He starts his letter off by suggesting that he wants to make known to these Gentiles that he himself is a Gentile. It's always good to know that when someone is writing to you, they have an existential experience as to what you're going through. That just means that they can concur with you what's happening. And so this educated author is writing to a group of people who need to know assuredly that in the midst of their challenges, they've not been left alone. He wants it known that when he writes, he is writing from the perspectives that he has received words from some others, that there is some words that are helpful in their personal lives. He says, also, I knew of some individuals who were eyewitnesses, who were conscious of what took place early on in the lives of the people of the way. He's quite aware that there are individuals who have been blessed by what God is doing. There is one particular that he wants this message to be conveyed to. He gives his name. We don't know a whole lot about him. We don't know really where he came from. We just know that he obviously was a high-ranking official. He was someone of notoriety, someone of authority and power. His name is Theophilus. The author is very clear in making sure that he pronounces Theophilus to his audience. There is something about his name. His name, Theophilus, meaning literally one who loves God. And so, borrowing from the context of his name, I hope you don't mind if I address for the next 12 moments something in reference to Theophilus. I want to leave with you this pivotal question that will hopefully probe your inner being and help you to understand your plight and how God is willing to help you in it. My question is, what do lovers of God look like? What do lovers of God look like? If his name literally means one who loves God, what do lovers of God look like? Come here for a moment. Let's draw closer to the text as we look carefully so that somehow we can understand what Luke wants us to hear. In an age when the Hebrews are wrestling with whether or not they are the preeminent people, whether that they are the ones who are lovers of God and God's favorite people, he wants to make sure that he writes so that there is a segment of society who recognizes, in spite of your dilemma and your complexities, God still loves you too. And so he wants to make sure that these people who are Gentiles, you know, those minorities in the first century, they weren't thought a whole lot of. They were Gentile dogs. They were individuals who were considered half-breeds. They didn't have everything that the Jews had. They hadn't amassed a whole lot. They weren't favored by certain people. They were just some folk who were challenged with life and trying their best to figure out how to live it out. And so the author is suggesting that he wants to give a reality to everything that he's experienced, and so he starts his letter off in that first 4 verses trying to give some headway to what's happening. He wants his readers to understand that life can sometimes be good, but you and I both know that in the midst of those good days, there's always some bad days. He says, I'm an eyewitness of some things that transpired early on in life, and I recognize that God loved the Israelites and the Hebrews, and he took care of them, he provided for them, but you were not really as left out as some people would like for you to think. And just in case you missed my bridge over to parallel the first century event, I'm trying to push you into the 21st century so that you understand you are not left out either. We are living in perilous times, as somebody who's far wiser than I has ever lived has suggested, and that just entails that there are some times that we are going to face that are just going to be perplexing to most of us. There are going to be some days when we get it and some days when we just don't get it. We know that we're in the 21st century and times look good at one moment and people are accepted and embraced, and then at another moment we are being the individuals that are being stalked by law enforcement on one hand and gunned down on another. Am I talking to anybody this morning? In an age when we should be doing better, when because of our intellectualism and our education, we have the accoutrements to move forward in life, but somehow somebody has decided because we are not of the same hue, because our pigmentation looks different, they have closed doors on us because we just don't come from the same side of the track. Am I talking to anybody this morning? You might have the same degree, but because you matriculated at a different institution, they decided that you don't have the wherewithal to get to or arrive at the position where they are. And so I stopped by to serve notice today that God is wanting to say to all of us, when you look like him, life can open up some doors and make some changes. Never ever let anybody look down on you because you're pretty brown skin. As the sociologist would suggest, is high visibility. Because you stand out because your color causes you to stand out. Dr. King has suggested that we ought not be gauged because of where we come from, but rather because of the quality that is within us. And I suggest to you today that many of us have been held back because we bought into the ideology that we are of lesser importance because we came from a different side of the track. My question remains, what do lovers of God look like? I looked at the text carefully because I wanted to know what Luke wanted to espouse in the midst of these challenging times for people who were embracing difficult days. I watched carefully throughout the week the news. My wife can attest to the fact that I'm an avid news watcher. I watch the news when I get up in the morning. That's the first thing I see. When I arrive back home, I'm watching the news. When I get home in the afternoon, I'm watching the news. In the evening at 6 o'clock, I'm watching the news. Before I go to bed at night, I'm watching the news. I need to know what's going on, what's transpiring in life that I need to know about? What's happening to people both nationally and internationally? And how is it going to affect me where I live? And if you know the truth, you ought to know that you ought to be watching what's happening both here and abroad so that you can assess what's best for you. I ask the question again, what do lovers of God look like? Since we don't know a whole lot about Theophilus, since we don't know his mama or his daddy or what side of the track he came from, we just know that he was obviously somebody, because even Luke himself, Dr. Luther, educated man, gives him the title, O Most Excellent Theophilus. There's a deal of respect that he gives to him because of his position. He wants it to know that when he writes to him, even though Theophilus, you have heard of some of the things that have transpired in the life of Christianity, let me give you a more clearer record. Watch those verses, because those verses want you to know that there is something that Luke wants to spell out for him. He wants Theophilus to know that you are not the only one that loves God. You are not the only one. Even in your high-ranking position, you're not the only one that has fallen in love with the ultimate reality, who knows what God has done. There's some others who have gone before you who love God just as much as you love God. What do lovers of God look like? They look like people who attend the temple, the mosque, the synagogue, the church on any given Sunday. What do they look like? Do they carry their Bibles up under their arms? Are they walking around with their pseudo halos? Are they holy in their speeches and not holy in their walk? Tell me, what do lovers of God look like? Some of them look just like I do. On a good day, they might look holy and walk sanctimonious, but on some other day, challenged and dealing with life's complexity, what do they look like? I contend, as Luke was discussing this with Theophilus, he was looking longingly back towards the Old Testament, because he wanted the Jews to recognize that even though they held Moses up as the great lawgiver of all of Israel, he was indeed a lover of God, but there are others who were equally lovers of God. As messed up as he was still perceived as a lover of God. He said, I know that you are the Hebrews and you are in love with Abraham, the father of faith, in whom God has bestowed all of his blessings, and said to him, I'll make you the father of many nations. And God is saying, what is ultimately the lovers of God look like? I know that those boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, as messed up as they were in the fiery furnace, what do lovers of God look like? They might smell and resemble a smoke fire, but God can show forth his love in the midst of their life. What do lovers of God look like? Maybe they were a Solomon who had many wives and concubines that messed up. What do lovers of God look like? They look like a boy that God can choose and tell him build the temple. Enough of the Old Testament. When we dealt with the major and minor prophets, I ask you in the New Testament, what do lovers of God look like? Do they look like a Matthew that's name is Levi, who finds himself as a tax collector at the end of So this morning, as you come to celebrate the great Advent, as you recognize the intervention of God in the midst of human history, know that God is willing to show up even now in the midst of your struggles and do something about your situation. Theophilus, you are a lover of God, but you're not the only one. There's some of them left still in the church. There's lovers of God and they go by the name of Lee. There's lovers of God in the church and they may go by the name of Esther. There's lovers of God in the church, they may go by the name of Lorraine. There's lovers in the church today and they look like God and their name is Earl. There's others in the church who are lovers of God. They show up in the context of worship and they just want to show you, God, we still love you in spite of everything that we go through. Whatever your name is, you are a lover of God. And God just wants to bless you.